Meghan Markle is making headlines again, but for all the wrong reasons. After her very public departure from the royal family, a podcast that fizzled, and a series of Netflix projects that largely missed the mark, you'd think she'd prefer to stay out of the limelight for a while. Instead, she chose a curious moment to re-emerge, unleashing a video that no one requested and showcasing something most people didn't want to see. This digital move didn't just cause a stir, it blew up the internet. Not with applause, mind you, but with a tidal wave of negative attention. The online world exploded, and the reaction was anything but positive. The spark that ignited this latest firestorm? A video Meghan dropped on Instagram. It depicted her dancing with an almost uncomfortable enthusiasm to some classic hip-hop, supposedly filmed 4 years earlier while she was pregnant. There was no explanation, no context, just her moving awkwardly, clearly aiming for some kind of cool mom vibe. You could almost feel the calculated attempt for this to go viral in a good way, to project an image of being relatable, cutting edge, or spontaneously fun, whatever persona she's trying to cultivate these days. But the result was a widespread collective shudder. If anyone else had posted something like this, it might have earned a few sympathetic clicks before vanishing. But this is Meghan Markle. Every action, every public appearance, every digital footprint is picked apart, especially given her recent attempts to shape her public image. The instant this video went live, it was everywhere. X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, you name it. And the conversation wasn't, "Look how awesome she is." It was more like, "What on earth is this?" The internet quickly became a meme factory, churning out endless jokes and parodies at her expense. The digital frenzy was building, and for Meghan Markle, the initial wave of online ridicule must have been a jolt. Picture it, a meticulously managed public image, constantly battling a narrative pushed by critics, suddenly undermined by one poorly judged dance. There must have been confusion, a genuine struggle to comprehend why this seemingly innocent act of self-expression had backfired so spectacularly. She likely saw it as a powerful, even defiant statement against those who've relentlessly scrutinized her for years. The immediate reaction from her inner circle probably swung between panic and staunch defense, scrambling to justify the misstep. But as the memes multiplied and the negative comments piled up, a deeper feeling would have settled in, a slow burn of indignation. This wasn't just internet chatter. It was a perceived assault, another instance of the world misunderstanding her. The thought of pulling the video, of giving in to the online mob, would have been unthinkable. It was her content, her message, and to delete it would mean capitulating to the very forces she felt were constantly trying to silence her. But the online mockery was just the opening act. Behind the scenes, Meghan's questionable post ignited a full-blown crisis at Netflix. Keep in mind, Meghan was still under a substantial contract with the streaming giant, a partnership meant to culminate in the eagerly awaited With Love, Meghan docuseries, a project designed to showcase her as a thoughtful, insightful voice on topics from parenting to personal growth. So, when a clip of her gyrating awkwardly to hip-hop while pregnant suddenly appeared, Netflix executives were sent into a tailspin. Their response was far from amused. In fact, reports indicate they were absolutely furious. Senior figures like Greg Peters, who had previously been willing to give Meghan creative latitude, saw this post as utterly irresponsible. It wasn't just off-brand. It was a major liability for the company. Whether she acknowledged it or not, Meghan, in that moment, was a face of Netflix. Her online activities, particularly as a public figure under contract with a major platform, directly reflected on their brand's reputation. The seriousness of the situation triggered an immediate, urgent emergency meeting. Emails flew, desperate. Calls were made, and by the end of the day, Meghan received an unambiguous command: take the video down. There was no gentle suggestion or subtle hint. It was a direct, unmistakable order to remove the offending post. But then came the truly astonishing twist. She refused, flat out. Meghan declared she wouldn't delete it, framing it as a personal expression, a defiant pushback against years of public mocking. She apparently claimed it was her way of taking back the narrative, or something similar. Making a questionable post is one thing, but then openly defying the very studio holding your contract, that's an entirely different level of boldness. Netflix predictably did not take this lightly. Sources suggest they issued a stern ultimatum. This was her final warning. Any further slip-ups of this nature would not only lead to the non-renewal of her lucrative deal, but also a significant reduction in support for existing projects. And shockingly, that's exactly what started to happen. The repercussions were swift and decisive. Her plans for promoting With Love Meghan on social media were immediately axed. She had been gearing up for an extensive campaign, complete with behind-the-scenes glimpses, exclusive interviews, and interactive Instagram Q&A sessions. All of it was canceled on the spot. No posts, no promotions, nothing. Netflix began a deliberate process of distancing itself, essentially acting as though the show didn't even exist until its eventual release, a stark contrast to the massive hype they had generated just a year prior. But the cutbacks didn't end there. Rumors began circulating that she had been completely barred from the editing suites. Meghan had reportedly wanted significant involvement in the post-production of her series, aiming to shape the message exactly as she envisioned it. Now, she found herself completely locked out of that vital process. Netflix didn't want her anywhere near it. They were quietly, systematically severing ties, trying to salvage what they could without creating an even bigger public relations mess. Meanwhile, Meghan was reportedly seething. Accounts suggest heated arguments with executives, especially Greg Peters, as she fiercely tried to defend the video and assert her creative freedom. But the damage was already done. Even some of the executives who had initially championed her were beginning to pull away, her support system there rapidly disintegrating. All of this, the vanishing backing, the escalating tension, stemmed from a single video. One video that, in her view, was empowering or an act of defiance. To everyone else, her fans, her detractors, and crucially, the studio paying the bills. It was simply a deeply misguided and ill-timed decision from someone seemingly desperate to remain in the public eye. The Meghan Markle PR machine, once a formidable operation, was now sputtering. Unless her next move is executed with extreme precision, this incident could mark the beginning of a complete breakdown. Netflix's concerns went beyond mere appearances. They were terrified of losing control. The last thing they needed was to be dragged further into Meghan's ongoing drama, especially when they were already under internal pressure to justify her expensive contract in the first place. For months, executives had carefully constructed an image of a mature, thoughtful Meghan Markle embarking on a new chapter. That meticulously crafted narrative vanished the moment her video surfaced. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere was thick with unease. Some insiders claimed Greg Peters wasn't the only one frustrated. Other board members, particularly those who had initially supported bringing Meghan on, openly voiced their doubts. Reports even suggested one senior executive bluntly stated, "She's becoming more of a liability than an asset." This sentiment began to spread throughout Netflix headquarters. Suddenly, the entire partnership was being reevaluated. Not just her show, but everything associated with her name. Even Ted Sarandos, who had mostly stayed out of her previous controversies, was drawn into the situation. Meghan had reportedly appealed directly to him for support, desperately trying to salvage whatever influence she had left. But even his willingness to engage was gone. The studio was in full-blown crisis management, and no amount of star power or past goodwill was going to override that, at least not this time. In response, Netflix subtly but decisively tightened its grip. No official press releases, no grand announcements, but internally, the shift was unmistakable. Emails stopped, meetings were canceled. Any talk about future collaborations with Meghan or Harry was put on indefinite hold. The promotional team received directives to de-emphasize Meghan's involvement in upcoming campaigns. Her name, once a selling point, had transformed into a significant PR risk. And it wasn't just Netflix pulling back. Hollywood insiders watched the drama unfold in real time, and news travels quickly in that town. One talent agency even circulated an internal memo warning against partnerships that might carry residual baggage from ongoing corporate fallout. Translation: avoid Meghan Markle right now. She's toxic. Meanwhile, Meghan wasn't quietly accepting her fate. She reportedly took the backlash incredibly personally, lashing out behind the scenes about how unfairly she was being treated. Friends close to her claimed she genuinely believed the video was harmless, seeing the outrage as just another attempt to silence her voice. She perceived herself as a woman simply expressing joy and freedom, genuinely unable to grasp why anyone would see it differently. But here's the crucial point. Context matters. When you're tied to a major corporation, when your public image is part of a business deal, every action has consequences. It's no longer just about personal expression. Meghan might have felt she was being authentic, but Netflix was focused on protecting its bottom line. And at that moment, their priorities were light years apart. Even some of her most devoted fans started to question her judgment. Comment sections on online forums and fan pages, typically bastions of unwavering support, showed a clear shift. The usual defenders began posting remarks like, "This wasn't the smartest move," or "I love Meghan, but that video was really not it." That loyal online army she could usually count on was noticeably shrinking. People were beginning to realize that perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't always the innocent victim in these situations. To make matters worse, the video was now being edited and remixed into formats that stripped away any last shred of dignity. It was clipped, slowed down, auto-tuned, and relentlessly turned into viral meme content. Every repost brought more attention, but never the kind Meghan desired. She had tried to control the narrative, but now her own content was completely beyond her control. Amidst this chaos, "With love, Meghan," relentlessly approached its release date. The glaring issue was that no one at Netflix seemed eager to promote it anymore. Whispers suggested it might be quietly released onto the platform with minimal fanfare, almost as if they hoped to bury it in plain sight. One employee reportedly remarked, "It feels like they're trying to make it disappear." That's hardly a ringing endorsement. Internally, the production team working on the series also felt the intense pressure. Some staff members were reportedly frustrated, having dedicated months to crafting a show designed to present Meghan in a thoughtful, inspiring light, only for a 30-second Instagram post to completely sabotage the entire message. One editor even joked, "We should have just made a dance video and saved everyone the trouble." As of now, Meghan reportedly remains unwavering in her refusal to remove the original post. She has made it abundantly clear that she will not be bullied or silenced, regardless of Netflix's demands. However, with each passing day, her leverage continues to dwindle. The deals, the influence, the platform itself, it's all slowly slipping away. The industry is keenly observing how far she will fall before she either manages a dramatic strategic shift or completely disappears from the relentless glare of the spotlight. The fallout from the video resonated far beyond Hollywood's inner circles. By the time the story reached the broader media landscape, Meghan's ill-fated dance had been dissected by virtually every talk show, gossip site, and social commentator with a following. While some tried to frame it as quirky or misunderstood, the overwhelming majority weren't convinced. The dominant narrative was stark. Meghan Markle had once again gone rogue, and this time the consequences might be career-ending. The video itself transcended a mere moment of poor judgment. It evolved into a powerful symbol of something much larger: the constant tug-of-war between celebrity autonomy and corporate authority. On paper, Meghan was still under contract with Netflix. In reality, she was now a renegade brand operating purely on instinct, raw emotion, and an insatiable hunger for attention. And studios despise that. They crave consistency, predictability. Meghan was offering neither. Legal discussions reportedly began to surface between her representatives and Netflix's legal department. Nothing official, no lawsuits, but definite murmurs of breach of image clauses and violations of promotional agreements. This is legal speak for, "We're figuring out how to sever ties without starting a public war." In Meghan's camp, frantic efforts were underway to spin this into some kind of victory, perhaps even exploring a move to a platform where she could be unfiltered, whatever that vague concept truly meant. The profound irony lies in this: the video would likely have attracted significantly less attention had she simply complied with the request to delete it. Instead, Meghan's stubborn refusal to back down transformed a minor PR hiccup into a catastrophic brand implosion. The longer it remained online, the louder the uproar became. At one point, even professional comedians began to mock it. Impersonations, satirical sketches, endless TikToks. The video became a pervasive running joke. People weren't talking about Meghan Markle, the activist, or Meghan Markle, the producer. They were talking about that bizarre dancing video. Amidst this escalating storm, her personal network also began to shrink. Some of her usual celebrity confidants went conspicuously silent. Publicists kept their distance. No one wanted to get caught in the collateral damage of her unfolding crisis. A few quietly offered counsel: lie low, take a break, recalibrate. Meghan, however, seemed disinclined to listen. She felt profoundly misunderstood, cornered. In private conversations, she increasingly dug in her heels on themes of authenticity and owning her narrative. There were even hushed whispers that she was considering launching her own media venture, something independent, bold, and free from corporate influence. But the specifics remained hazy, and more importantly, no investors were lining up to fund such an unstable endeavor. Investors seek stability, they demand structure. Meghan, at that moment, was anything but structured. As for Netflix, the quiet damage control operation continued. Marketing materials were systematically scrubbed. Press previews were indefinitely postponed. Internally, the mood was one of pervasive crisis management. A few staffers reportedly began referring to the entire situation as the Meghan disaster, a phrase that spread through internal communication channels like wildfire. Executives focused on minimizing exposure, ensuring no one could accuse them of endorsing the controversial video or her behavior. And yet, amidst all the chaos, one undeniable truth emerged. Meghan had lost the room, not just at Netflix, not just with the broader public, but even with those who had once perceived her as a refreshing alternative to a world of carefully crafted personalities. What had begun as a promising new chapter for her career was now drawing to a close with an awkward, deafening silence. There was no clear path forward, no major financial backers, just a cacophony of negative noise. Eventually, the intense pressure began to ease. The internet, as it always does, shifted its focus. New stories emerged, capturing the public's fleeting attention, but the damage had been irrevocably done. Meghan's standing in the entertainment world had fundamentally changed. She was no longer the groundbreaking royal-turned-media darling. She had become a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that being in the spotlight doesn't equate to controlling your own story. Her show, With Love, Meghan, did eventually get released, but it was done so with almost no fanfare. There was no press tour, no premiere party. Netflix quietly released it, hoping the ripples wouldn't extend too far. Viewership numbers were, at best, underwhelming, and critical reviews ranged from lukewarm to indifferent. Critics dismissed it as unfocused, overtly performative, and out of touch. Audiences simply didn't stay engaged. Still, Meghan attempted to maintain some semblance of momentum. She posted vague, self-affirming quotes on her social media pages about growth, strength, and being your truest self. But the engagement she once commanded was gone. People had already formed their opinions, and this time, they weren't swayed. In the end, Meghan Markle did achieve what she seemingly craved: attention. But it wasn't the kind of attention that builds empires or inspires movements. It was the fleeting, transient kind. The kind that trends for a day, maybe two, before dissolving into the vast archives of internet history. For someone who once commanded global headlines with every single move, that might have been the most profound and painful consequence of all. Because true fame isn't just about being seen. It's about being taken seriously.